Hi everyone, and welcome back to Maths and Physics with Mr. Simons. Today's calculus lesson on first derivative. We're looking at fractions, where we're going to have to write that variable in fraction form first as either negative exponents before we can find the first derivative, right? So, to solve this, we must know the following. Law 2 of exponents, which states that we subtract exponents if the bases are the same and we dividing. Right, so there, 6 divided by 3, 4 minus 2. You see there I'm dividing, bases are the same. And that then gives me 2x squared. Right, now before we can determine the derivative using power rule, we have to ensure that we have no variables as denominators. So you see there, what I mean is, before I can find first derivative of this, if I asked to do so, I cannot do so while I have a x squared at the bottom. That must be taken to the top. So we therefore have to apply law 2 before we can simplify and find the first derivative. So here's the first way we can give, where we have x cubed at the bottom, which would take it to the top, it would become x negative 3. Right? Or we test second law of exponents, we have a x and x to the power 4. That would become, according to second law, 1 minus 4, which then becomes x negative 3. And there I got rid of the denominator and I put it on top, so that's minus 4x negative 3. Now only I can find the first derivative. So let's look at some problems. Right, determine the derivative of f of x equal 3x squared minus 3 over x. Now these are examples, but I've taken them actually all from past papers. So there's 3x squared minus 3 over x. First, we have to ensure no variables are expressed as denominators in the equation. So how do I get rid of this x? If it's positive 1 at the bottom, if I take it to the top, it would become x negative 1. So it must move from the bottom to the top. So there I have 3x squared minus 3x negative 1. Remember, positive at the bottom, negative on top. Now I can find the first derivative. So if I say f prime x, I would have 2 times 3, 2 minus 1. Minus 1 times negative 3, minus 1 minus 1. Right, so you see there 2 times 3, 2 minus 1. Minus 1 times negative 3, minus 1 minus 2, so that's 6x, minus, not minus 3, plus 3x negative 2. Right, and that is my answer. 1 mark for each one I found correctly. Another mark there for simplifying, so this would have been a 3-mark question. But yeah, as I said, the norm is we have to write it as a negative exponent. So I'm just on a negative exponent as a positive exponent. So it's not compulsory for exams, as I said, but for best practices, we put it at the bottom. So that's 6x plus 3 over x squared. Right? You don't need to do this for exam, but you need to know how to do it. Right? Now, next question, evaluate dy dx if y equal 5 over 4x minus x cubed over 4. So first, this x is not allowed to be at the bottom. I have to take it to the top. And there, a lot of learners forget that this is actually 1 over 4. So we always separate the x cubed and put it on the side and write 1 over 4 so that we multiply correctly. Right, so there, we take x up, x negative 1, so that becomes 5 over 4, x negative 1. If I take x cubed to the side, that's negative 1 over 4, x cubed. I am therefore now allowed to differentiate. So I'm going to differentiate y with respect to x, so that would read dy dx. Negative 1 times 5 over 4, which becomes negative 5 over 4. Negative 1, which then becomes negative 2. 3 times negative 1 over 4, which becomes negative 3 over 4, 3 minus 1. Right, so if I differentiate, take note, I can't say y prime x. I have to now use the notation that says I'm differentiating y with respect to x because I've been given y. As you can see, the minus 1 is being multiplied, and there I'm subtracting 1. 3 is being multiplied, and I'm subtracting 1. Right, so that gives me minus 5 over 4, minus 2, minus 3 over 4, and 2. So there, 2 marks for my answer, 1 mark there for simplification. All right, if I write this as a positive exponent, that would be 5, negative 5 over 4x squared, minus 3x squared over 4. Right, so there I can take the x squared to the bottom and it becomes positive. Right, let's look at the next problem. Evaluate given dx in square brackets 3 minus 2x squared minus 1 over x cubed. So again, I can't find the first derivative while x, or the variable, is a denominator, so that must go up. So x squared at the bottom would become x negative 2 on top. X cubed at the bottom would become x negative 3 on the top. So first we simplify 3 minus 2, x negative 2, minus 1x negative cubed. Now from there, if I'm going to differentiate, I'm going to drop the dx. So if I drop that, 3, first derivative of 3 is 0, minus 2 times negative 2, minus 2 minus 1, minus 3 times negative 1, minus 3 minus 1. All right, that would give me positive 4, x negative 3, positive 3, x negative 4. All right, so there 4x negative 3 plus 3x negative 4. If I take it at the bottom, that would be 4 over x cubed plus 3 over x4. Right? I hope you follow, you understand. Wish you nothing but the best. Continue practicing. You only get better. God bless. Bye.